My next door neighbor has moved out, and as part of their cleaning up their garage, when they moved in, either the previous person or the previous person or the previous person had a workbench that had this old wood vise on it. They completely cleared out their garage down to the studs pretty much and got rid of all the cabinets and benches and everything, and they were going to throw this out. It's like, can I have it? And it's like, sure. So yeah. It's not hoarding if it's tools, right? I hope so. Otherwise, I'm in trouble. So this is one of those things where if you turn it this way, the whole way, like there's this cast iron piece here that this little knob comes up to, and you can also see there's this slot. And when it's there, you can sort of see it slides open when it's like that. And then you can also theoretically, not that I'm going to be able to do it from here, but you could slide it closed, and then you just rotate it around. It locks within like a quarter turn or 3/4 turn. So once this is no longer in the slide position, it will lock in place, and then you're all sorted. Of course, they just hacked it off the bench and everything else. So this is much bigger, or at least a bit bigger, than the existing one that I have installed, and there have been times where I would have liked to have at least wider jaws. Now granted, these jaws are going to need replaced because this is not set up correctly, and it's not ideal because they're not flat or square or anything else, but that theoretically can be fixed, and it does open wider in this direction, and it's already a bit wider metal wise in this direction. Now the one thing I did notice is they managed to crack the handle, so I will either have to take that apart, clamp it and glue it, or make a new handle, and it'll definitely need cleaned up. It's an old vintage vise, and this is a spring-loaded piece, so you can put it down and clamp it and it holds it, but it's spring-loaded and it needs cleaned up, and I don't know if it's going to be usable, but hey, you know, free tools and all that. I guess this weekend, since I put all the rest of the stuff away, I also got a bunch of 2x4s and things, which completely filled up my spots. I never read the stuff. It's Columbian hardware from Cleveland, Ohio, USA. That's what it says on the front. I didn't look at the back or if there's anything anywhere else, but that's what it says on the front. First, it's time to try and get the boards off from the old bench. So start just taking screws out and then slowly getting stuff out. And there's some bolts that was holding the bottom into the base there, so we take those out. And then there's some from the other side, so take those nuts off and get the screws out. That should be better, and then we got that all done. Alright, well, I got the back pieces all off, and you can tell that's a precision thing. I can't knock it though, because having not made that myself, I don't know how hard that would have been with whatever tools that they had when they did it. But now you can see a little bit more of how it works. Here's this little piece. When this, let's see, yeah, when it goes that way, it engages. That pulls tighter. Until this goes up to there. And then this front jaw, ideally I should have clamped in the back because then the front jaw would move, but because I had to do it this way, this back now slides. So when this part is up, that little flap piece is up, and then that slides. So yeah, other than it being dirty and not set up very well, and probably a little bit rusted, not horrible because it was at least in the garage and not out in the weather. So it definitely could be worse. And I know all the moving surfaces are dry versus being greased and or oiled, so it does pretty good considering that, but that's the way it's supposed to go. So when that's flat, you can quick slide the vise into place, and then once you got it in place, you just crank and you can go to there. So that, let's see, how far is that? That's almost a 1/4 inch, I think, between 1/8 and a 1/4 inch to fully tighten. So that should be plenty for most of the time, because if you snug something up, you normally shouldn't want to squish it more than another 1/4 inch. Hopefully, and hopefully it's solid enough to do that. And something else I just noticed, I was going to just set things up to try and glue this, because there's definitely the crack along this side, but then I noticed when I pulled back, it's also split some on the other side.
And since I have the handle, I might as well try and glue it. Why not? Waste not, want not, and all that. So I used wood glue, and obviously too much of it, and didn't have the wipe rag handy, so went and got a sock. Because who else doesn't use old socks? Now it's time to get the handle off, and so that all's good. And then let's try and get those boards off, or for the front piece of the vise, and that worked. Those were straight screws.
I know I said I was going to just make a new handle, but I figured, alright, I have an existing handle, even if it's cracked, let's try and use wood glue, and I think that actually worked. So it will still need cleanup because of the divot that will happily slice your hand, so I'll have to deal with that. That held the crack together, so it's good for another who knows how many years. I guess that seems to be the story of how I do stuff, is I try and make things last as long as absolutely possible. So I think that'll work. And then, as you saw, I managed to get the other board off, which wasn't too bad. This is more of an old school vintage, very dense green 2x6 as compared to the other one, which is a more modern one. So if I keep any of them, I don't know what I'm going to do with that one, but if I keep any of them, it would probably be to reface and reuse this old growth board, because they don't make them like that anymore. Hence why they're old growth. Anyway, so I got that all off. Initially I was going to try and take it apart and put it in evaporust, but this right here is a peened over pin that if I got it off, I wouldn't be able to get something back in. So I don't know if I'm going to put it in evaporust. And I realized this actually isn't in that bad a shape. So I think just with a little bit of wire wheel, it might go back to usable, because again, it was sitting in a garage, not outside. So it's not real rusty. It's a little dirty, but it's dry sawdust dirt. I mean, here's a little bit rusted, but again, wire wheel should clean that up. I gotta figure out where I want to do that and get all my wire wheel stuff back out, because could I make it fancy as new? Yeah, but this is a cool old patina on it, and I kind of like that. Similar to when with the joiner table that I redid, I didn't redo the table, I just left it the nice old cast iron color. So
alright, now to try and clean it up. So start with the wire brush, and that worked for a little while, and I got some of the rougher stuff, thicker bits off. You can see it coming off onto the table there. And then I just went to there, and I should have just started with that. That's so much faster. It makes more of a mess, so I needed a fan to blow the stuff off so it doesn't come back all over. And I still kind of made a mess, but it's better with the fan and the door open. So it turns out those are somewhat pitted, the rods and such, but I think it's going to be fine. It's not like this is a precision part. There's no, it just needs to work. And as I found out later, cleaning all that off, it works so much better, especially after putting base wax on. It just slides nicely, so I think that's what it really needed. But yeah, it's so far so good. And just going through and get some air, because it does make a mess. Alright. And I realize it's washing out too much. So let's take the cotter pin out and try and get that end off. Hey, the end came off. And of course I had to remember which way it goes on, because it does go on a certain way, and I don't want to screw that up. So in the meantime, while that was over there, that was been soaking for an hour and a half between previous video and this video, in an hour and a half, 2 hours, in some evaporust, because those are the only pieces I really stuck in there. And now I'm just, because I can't get those front pieces off because there's bolts that are rusted on the front, and I didn't want to go nuts with that and not be able to get it back on. So I'm just using the sandpaper to finish off where I couldn't clean with the power tool, and that worked. It took a bit more work, but that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. So just go through and get the stuff cleaned up, and back and forth and back and forth. You know the drill from previous videos and other people's stuff. It just takes time to get through the things. And now I'm just going through and trying to get some of the worst stuff off on the other pieces. And that did pretty good. I didn't do enough to take the patina off really on those. I just tried to get it such that the worst of the rust was off. Yeah, that's all so far so good. And now that I got all that sorted, I'm going to put paste wax on, a liberal amount. of paste wax. Since I did clean off rust and such, hopefully the paste wax will help with the cast iron and the steel and keep it from rusting quite so much. It should. It's not like this is going to be wet all the time outside, but just I don't know how many. It's probably been it's sitting there in the other garage at least 20 years, because we've been in this place 20 years already, and that was there when 20 years ago. So who knows how much longer that's been there. The fact that it used straight screws on some of the pieces, it could be even 30, 40 years it's been sitting there. So it should last just fine, for assuming I end up using it. I probably will, but have to redo my bench to get there, as I mentioned later as well. But yeah, just go through, get paste wax on everything, and then wipe it off, and then start getting ready to put it back together in a little bit. There we go. And got that back on the right way, and it looks like it's going to work.
It is cleaned up. The only thing I ran through the evaporust was this little twister lock piece, this piece, the spring. Spring's still a bit rusted, and this back piece and this cotter key, which probably didn't need it. The rest of it, I cleaned this up nice with that thing and some sandpaper, and then I just soaked the heck out of it with paste wax. Let's see, this should, let's see, that is in fact slid up the whole way. So if we take this and put it like that, that rolls very nicely now. So just cleaning that up, cleaning the rust off, and add some paste wax, that should be good. And because I used paste wax and not oil or grease, sawdust should stick less, theoretically. And I might as well put the handle back in just because. So yeah, turn this up, and that locks. That's so much easier now that that's cleaned off. And I forgot to show it before I put it back together, but there's a set of brass teeth on the upper side that's basically in here. So when that's turned down, it's not engaged with the brass teeth, and when it's turned up, it is engaged with the brass teeth. So yeah, now I just got to figure out where in the world I'm going to put that in my far too full garage until I redo my bench in order for it to fit, because that definitely... This was the old kitchen countertop frame that I had made. Then this was the original door to the garage that we replaced when we moved in, because it didn't go the whole way down and water was getting underneath. And this ended up being an actual solid door versus a hollow door, which was cool. So I just used this as a bench top. So this is a 2x4 and a 2x4. No, that's just a thin, that's a 1x4 on the front. Yeah, that's a little 1x4. And then it's just that, so it's a 2x4 frame base, and this one only fit because the bench stuck out over longer, and it's not ideal. So anyway, long and short of it is, in order to properly install this, I would have to redo the bench top, which isn't the end of the world. It's just, where do I put all the stuff? Get that redone. So we'll see at some point. It's on the list. I don't know when we'll get to it, but at least this is cleaned up and in better condition than it was.